What are your takes based off the summer that you think might be possible, but you aren't sure about? This is a riddle. I feel like I'm watching the Sphinx in Egypt or something. All right, New Orleans football. We're talking Saints. We're talking hypotheticals. We're talking riddles. I can't wait to see what we have in store. Goose and gaffs galore. That rhymed.
Your take, something that's a little bit risky. It could be milk, it could be wine, however it ages. We'll see how it goes. But
Wow.
standing out there watching practice, we all have like deep harbored thoughts that we would never really say in public. I'm going to force a couple of those out here. Give me your one. Give me your one that you feel like you have a strong lean on, but you don't believe in it either way yet.
I've got so many negative thoughts swirling in my head. With
Mike, brother, I mean, this is like the second or third video in a row. Get to Total Wine. Get some Campari. Put it in the freezer. Get you some Miller High Lifes. All right? Drink the neck down of the Miller High Life, then fill the rest with the frozen Campari. Put a lemon wedge in there. That's called a spaghetti. Okay? It's summer. Find a pool. Jesus. This guy. It's okay, pal.
With this, but I'll go positive on this one. And we've mentioned his name already.
Me?
I can't quit Chase Young. I still believe
he's your Kendra. He's your Kendra.
Yeah, he's my Kendra.
Well, more so because he could actually play though. But
this isn't necessarily from watching minicamp and OTAs because, as we've said, the defensive lineman didn't do.
Chase Young was good last year. If Chase Young is just what he was last year, it's okay. That's totally fine and totally worth the money. We don't need Chase. I mean, of course, it would be nice. But we don't need Chase Young to be a 15-sack monster. We don't need Chase Young to be the best edge rusher in the game. We don't need that. Now, if it happens, that would be very cool and very sweet. But it's not like it's a do or die, like, man, he really has to have 12 sacks. If he just is who he was last year in a horrible situation, then cool, sweet. He's proven, all right, he's good. He can play in this league. He can play at a high level in this league.
Do anything out there. But there's an investment level with him. Like I kind of admittedly wondered about his buy-in last year. He kind of had to settle for coming to the Saints on a one-year deal while he was having neck surgery and his market didn't play out. But this year,
I think you put all that to bed. I mean, I know Chase Young's had in his career, he's had some question marks about like his, even like on the field, just his like work ethic, I guess. But coming off of a neck surgery in a bad situation last year, I think he's been. I don't think you can challenge that he wants to be here. He's all in. He's bought in. Whatever. So I mean, that is a valid concern with players, and then once they kind of put it away, you just got to kind of accept it.
I think he chose the Saints. He spent a year here. He wanted to be here. Signed his 3-year deal here. Yeah. This is where he decided to stay, fully healthy. Watching him in OTAs and minicamp, watching him in 7-on-7 drills. Embracing new defense in Brandon Staley. If it's ever going to work for him, this is the year for it to work. Yeah. It's probably the healthiest he's been in an offseason in his career. He's still relatively young. And there's just not a lot of guys I look at on that defense and I'm like, well, that guy could be special. That guy could be special. He's still that guy could be special for me.
That's true. He is definitely in the situation, the perfect storm where his age, a new system, like the contract, this could be one of those years where he does take that step forward to where I was saying he doesn't have to, but if he all of a sudden he's 10, 12 sacks, then it's like, okay, damn, maybe he is that second overall pick instead of just an above average player. Can he go from above average to, oh, whoa, hold on a second. Now I see what's going on here.
For me. So I'm not my hot take isn't necessarily book it. Chase Young is going to be great, but my hot take is, he's still a pivot point for this team that could change our outlook on them.
Absolutely. Like for this, no question about it. He's a good pick for this. I would feel better about the Chase Young trajectory if he had been out there for every single practice. Like that would have illustrated something to me that just kind of, I don't know, yeah. Like I don't know if it means anything or if it doesn't, but for a guy in that position, I would just feel better about,
Yeah.
oh man, he was out here every single day. He was out here during the voluntary portion, and he wasn't. So I don't know. But like I still think he could be good, but I remain like slightly pessimistic about him, and I've carried that, and I still feel the same way, but it could flip the other direction, absolutely. But that's the type of gamble you have to take when you're not drafting well. Like those are the guys.
But well, even just like with a player like Chase Young, you know, if y'all are familiar with ranges in poker, you try and put your opponent on ranges of like the hands they could have. When you have a player like Chase Young who is the second overall pick, but then kind of stumbles, has injuries, whatever, but then he's fully healthy, and then he's still young. He's like 25 years old. So his range is insane. You know, his range is top end Aiden Hutchinson, right? Bottom end, just a rotational player. He's got an enormous amount of volatility anytime you have a prospect like that, or anytime you have a young player like that who is highly touted and then bumpy road. There is like this inherent could go either way, and it could go either way drastically.
Guys, and that I will give them this, like, and I think you've made this point a million times. Like, I think if you are betting on somebody in that position, none of them are good, safe bets. There's a gamble. There's more risk than.
I think Chase Young is, out of all those bets, he's who I would bet on because of the high ceiling. Like, you don't want to bet on somebody who has a relatively low ceiling. I think Chase Young's ceiling is super high.
Than possibility in any one of them. He's the guy I want to gamble on, just given the age and the pedigree. But I still don't know that you are finding this is our cornerstone building block defensive end. And could he prove it? He could. But I'm with you. Like, I feel like that's a good one for this exercise. Mine's going to fall in the same one I'm going to say, and there's all the reasons for doubt. But like, my hottest take watching these practices out there is that like maybe Jawan can be okay.
There you go. We said it whenever he signed the contract. We read between the lines and said, you know what? This looks like something else is going on. Like when he signed that contract, it was such a weird decision that you were forced to believe, and we deduced pretty quickly, that something is afoot here, and Kellen and the offensive staff has a plan for Jawan. And, you know, he's just, I'm not, like, I've talked about this before. I don't think the NFL has positions really anymore. Well, I mean, obviously some of them do, but like tight end is a or linebacker, defensive end, like those positions are kind of dead. Like, what makes a tight end? What makes a wide receiver? What makes a true tight end? What makes a blocking tight end? What makes it? You're just kind of like you're a pass catcher, right? So whether Jawan is literally a wide receiver or a tight end doesn't really matter. I think he will be used as that big body wide receiver, and everyone's been clamoring for a big bodied wide receiver. And I think Jawan will act as that, and I think there's a plan. I think there's an obvious plan of how they want to use him.
They were finding him a lot. Tight ends in general were getting the ball a lot. He had a good even split between Rattler and Shough. I went through and I looked at it, and I was thinking maybe maybe Rattler hit him more because Rattler kind of attacks that middle quadrant of the field.
Yeah.
It was a pretty even split. By the end of these practices, he was second on the team in receptions.
Damn it, I was just about to say that. I was about to say I would not be surprised at all if Jawan ends up being right there with Chris Olave on like the volume guy, where he's just kind of the matchup nightmare. Like he's on. Okay, let me explain it like this. Kellen and this really is Kellen and Brandon Staley. They're going to play the matchups on every snap. They're going to play the best matchups for the Saints. They're going to try and get the defense in a bad situation, or Brandon Staley's going to try and get the offense in a bad situation. Players are on the field for a reason. That's the good thing about being this like proactive style of kind of like Sean McVay, kind of like where you're constantly tinkering, you're constantly in this chess match, and that means every decision you make is for a reason, versus how like Pete Carmichael was, where it's like, we're going to run these 12 plays, and then I sure hope it works. You know, like regardless of the situation, regardless of the matchup, we're just running these plays. So if Jawan is on the field, and if everything I said is true, inherently he's on the field and the play is called because they see a matchup problem or they see where he could be in a good situation. If he is a matchup problem and if he is in a good situation, more than likely for these quarterbacks, he's the first or second read. He is either the 1 or the 2 on the route tree with Chris Olave, unless it's like, obviously like a deep ball or Shahid or something. So would not be surprised at all if Jawan has a huge season for a tight end standard or for a wide receiver standard.
With 9 and second on the team in targets with 11.
Yeah.
Just behind Rasheed Shahid, who was 12 of 13 catch-wise. He had a productive camp. And look, it goes beyond just him. Like that position in general. Jack Stoll, 6 catches on 6 targets. Trayton Welch had a lot of targets, a lot of catches. Like the tight ends were getting passes in this offense. So maybe Juwan Johnson has like some consistent productivity throughout. And look, I will say, like, he came to life last year after Derek Carr disappeared. So maybe there was a chemistry issue too. I would bet against it. I'm not drafting him early in fantasy, but that's my...
Yeah, I don't think... Yeah, I mean, don't get it twisted. I don't think he's going to be Brock Bowers. But I think for what we need, what the Saints are doing, I think he will be a big part of that.
Possible wine, possible milk take after OTAs and minicamp.
This is huge. This is great news. We can talk about this off air. I have so much. It's just been weighing me down. I have all this Jawan Johnson stock that I bought 2 years ago when Derek Carr first arrived, and they spent the offseason. I mean, I think Jawan Johnson, you can check your notes. I think he caught 50% of all the passes in OTAs and minicamp that year. And then we're sitting at his locker, and he's talking about how he studied this Julian Edelman film because that's the role he's going to play in this offense. And Derek Carr loves those choice routes. And he had this big smile on his face. And then first preseason game comes around, and he hits Juwan Johnson twice on that opening touchdown drive. And I'm like, writing fantasy advice about Juwan. I maxed out the credit cards. I dipped into the retirement. I bought all this Juwan Johnson stuff. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So now let's talk afterward. You can at least help me short it a little bit.
He has to. He has to hit, though, I think, for this offense to even have a chance.
Yeah, I agree. I think he has to. He has to be a big part of this offense. I mean, I think the wide receiver room is too thin. It is too thin. Thin is not even the right word because it's more than thin, right? Because we have yet to see Rasheed Shahid be a fully well-rounded receiver. Like he's good at what he does, but is he good at being a full-on wide receiver running all these routes? I have doubts about that, right? So we need Jawan to not only be a target, like not only get a lot of volume, but we need him to kind of shore up some of these routes that I really just want to see Rasheed Shahid being a part of.
He has to hit. He has to be okay for that investment not to be terrible. I think part of the thing that's hindered his career a little bit, though, is that he's played with multiple quarterbacks who don't like to throw in that middle quadrant of the field. And, I do think as we analyze Shough, I do think that was maybe one area where Rattler had a significant advantage.
Yeah, I mean, we knew Shough. I mean, you look at his tape; it's pretty obvious where he likes to go. He likes to throw it on the sidelines, throw it on the numbers. Yeah, he's not exactly the middle of the field kind of guy.
Attacking
during minicamp.
Yes, attacking the middle of the field. I think it'll click in and change and come a little bit. But I think Shuck's penchant is more to I want to try to roll out, extend, do kind of hit these outside quadrants. Maybe you can work multiple ways. Maybe he still caught a good amount of passes from him. They have a lot of chemistry. They played together in college. They've been working out together. Maybe it hits a little bit. I don't think it's gonna hit big. I don't think it's boom or bust, but I think there's somewhere in there that it is boom or bust. But I think there's somewhere in there that
no, it's probably not boom or bust with Jawan.
I mean, kind of because if he's what he has been, then it's a bust. If Jawan takes a step, and he is second choice, he is that that guy. And then all of a sudden you have Olave, Brandon Cooks, Rasheed Shahid filling in. It's not bad as far as your pass catchers. And obviously Alvin Kamara is going to catch a ton of passes too. So, there's only one football. You know what I mean? And when people are like, well, we need 2 more receivers and a backup running back, it's like, how many plays do you think we're going to run? How many? Like the game is only so long. You can only get so many touches, and if we have Alvin Kamara, Juwan Johnson, Chris Olave, Rasheed Shahid, Brandon Cooks, I don't really want a lot of other people touching the ball. I don't want Cam Akers and Devin Neal and Kendra Miller and whoever, Bub Means and blank tight end. I don't want them all touching the ball. You want your best players to have their hands on the ball. So if Jawan and some of these receivers, like we talked about, the Brandon Cooks, Chris Olave, the Rasheed Shahid, they can step forward, they can be the guy along with Alvin Kamara, you're probably good at that point.
His career hasn't necessarily been boom or bust because we've been talking about him for 4 years because he consistently catches like the 45 passes for the 600 yards and the 40.
Yeah, well, the problem is now is that he's got this big daddy contract to where 45 catches, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns, that ain't going to work.
Touchdowns. And it feels like there's more there. But at the very least, he's going to be probably their number 1 tight end, their number 3 target on the team. I mean, there's a baseline there at the very least. So I would be shocked if there's a bust, I should say.
The thing with Juwan is like if he could just have like a steady 40 per game, like I feel like the viewpoint would be a little bit different, but it feels too often like it's like 30, 0, 0, 13, 50.
I think he's got to be a guy who is consistently in that like 4 catch, 5 target baseline, and then sometimes you get that like 9 targets, 7 catches. He's got to be baseline, 4 catches, 45 yards, and then but every once in a while he's flirting with 9 catches, 80-something yards, and then he has this big peak games. Like he's got to be somewhere in there. He's got to be an option. He cannot be a guy who he's just not involved. He doesn't get catches. He doesn't do this. Like his best games can't be 4 catches for 45 yards.
6, 27, 12, 66, 80. Like it kind of feels like that's how his games go. And if it was just kind of like a consistent 40, 50 yards a game, I feel like it would just play out completely different. Because last year was like quiet. And then like he hits at the end of the year and all of a sudden it looks like, things are coming together for him. But it's kind of those disappearances within it. But like if he just had his steady 700 and it was just, you could allocate X amount of something every week, I feel like it would just come off a little bit differently and maybe add a big game on top of it. And I think that's where you get to the next level. But he gets to his 700 and it's kind of just like, you just feel like there's little stretches where you don't notice him. And I do think some of that's probably quarterback dependent a little bit. We saw it last year, but we'll see. Yeah, those feel like the guys that are made for this category.
I have one more in that category who I almost said, and you mentioned his name, Rasheed Shahid. Like he's probably even more so than Chase Young, but less surprising because Shahid's been such a big part of this team, and I think he's maxed out, close to maxed out on his potential when he's been healthy the last couple of years. But he's right back to this camp looking like. I mean, I think if you watched practices and you didn't know the makeup of this team, you'd think he was wide receiver 1. I mean, you had the numbers. Was he led the team in catches?
Yes. 12 or 13.
And it wasn't just, I mean, we know what Rasheed Shahid does. He runs deep and he catches those 5 deep passes a year that are big impact plays. But man, he's working in traffic.
If Rasheed Shahid can take a step forward and become a contested catch, dig route, ends, if he can work that short to intermediate and all of a sudden he's getting some of those catches, that is huge. That would be enormous for this team. If he could step up and say, okay, I actually am the number 2. I actually am a number 2 in the NFL. Or I could be a 1. Like if he can develop that, man, that would be, you talk about push this offense into a different dimension.
They're giving him run after the catch opportunities. He's catching slants. He's catching the most passes from both quarterbacks. He's got the speed. He's got the opportunity in this offense. Kellen Moore should have a vision for how to use him. So I think this would be a good time to buy Rasheed Shahid stock as well.
That'd be nice. Yeah. A lot of potential. And you got a guy like Kellen Moore who you got to wonder, or you have to expect he has a plan for these guys. And yeah, if Rasheed Shahid is looking as good as Mike's making it sound, then Kellen's going to find a way to get the ball to him. And whether that's screens or whatever, or short routes. Get him in space, let him use his speed. It is what it is. But there are players there. There is talent there for sure. If I had a hot take, it would be, I think Kellen Moore will be the coach of the year. I will absolutely have a position in the portfolio of Kellen Moore. Last I checked, it was like 25-1. Usually, if you go back, usually coach of the year is given to either a rookie head coach or a first-year head coach who takes over a really bad team and makes a really bad team turn around. Usually that's what they look at for the coach of the year. The floor is way down there for the Saints. So if Kellen gets the Saints to 7, 8, 9 wins, he probably win. If they have a winning record, he probably wins coach of the year running away. But even if they get to that like 500 territory of 7 or 8 wins, where maybe not be a winning season or whatever, I think he still would be in the running. I think he's already changed the identity, already changed the culture. I think if this team surprises people and becomes a story, Kellen Moore could absolutely become a narrative in the voters' mind. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Kellen Moore was coach of the year, and I'll be rooting for it. All right. By the way, I've seen a lot of people say, I'm taking the Saints to win the division, or I'm taking the Saints to win the Super Bowl, I'm taking the Saints to win this. Just take Kellen Moore to win the coach of the year. Because if the Saints win the division, he's coach of the year. If the Saints make the playoffs, he's coach of the year. If Tyler Shough is rookie of the year, more than likely Kellen Moore is coach of the year. That means Tyler Shough is good. That means Kellen Moore has a good offense. It's all kind of one and the same. So I think you give yourself a better chance to win if you just take Kellen Moore to win coach of the year instead of taking some of the other stuff. So that would be my recommendation for you. Instead of the Saints winning the division, just take the coach of the year. All right. Good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in the next video.